Hello, everybody. Bernie Gallerani here, bringing you another episode of Success is Not Convenient. Remember, our goal here today is to, and with all of these videos, is to highlight struggles that people go through and then having them stay persistent through that particular process. It's never easy, obviously, to have a level of success. And it's kind of an interesting trick in why that is. But I heard something recently that I thought was so interesting that I researched it, and I wanted to find as much about it as I possibly could. And I was listening to a podcast, and I heard somebody talk about that your behavior is your language. And then they went on to say, and they were kind of describing in this situation of what they saw in an individual. And it just really struck me to how much of this I actually see in the businesses that I run. And so I thought, man, what a great, interesting topic to bring today. And so I have some things I'd like to share with you and some thoughts of what is the language you're putting off by the behavior that you possess every day when you go to work, right? Especially if you're a salesperson, and more importantly, if you're an entrepreneur. As we all know, right, if you're an entrepreneur, and that means that you are a person who is not a W-2 employee, and you are working, and if you're an entrepreneur and you're working at a 1099 position where you own a company, you've branded and named that company, and there's a service in which you provide others through that company in which you start, and that's how you are earning an income. And what are the challenges that entrepreneurs or people who make a decision to be self-employed deal with? It's always an interesting thing, and I can give you lots of different kind of thoughts of what I've experienced over 20 years, now 21 years, I guess, of being a massive entrepreneur. I've been an entrepreneur my whole life for the most part. I've had some jobs where I was a W-2 employee, but for the most part of my life, I would say all but maybe a year or so where I was actually entrepreneurial. I owned my own businesses. I created my own income. I went through all the struggles that people go through. Lots of times where, you don't make hardly any money, no money, or you're paying out money in order just to keep the doors open. So the ins and outs struggle of that. But that's not really what we're talking about today. We're talking about the person who has made a decision to get into a field and says, hey, this sounds really great and fun. They write out a business plan. They get super excited. They think about what the possibilities are that could be for them in the future if they continue to stay on this path. And then somewhere around the journey of starting all of that, they realize that, hey, this is not as easy as I thought. And then they get distracted. And I would say more so than distracted is they lose hope. And so it might not be that they lose complete hope. Maybe their their distraction or lack of staying committed to their plan long-term causes them to lose hope. Maybe the outside influences. But what's interesting and fun is I get a chance to work with these kinds of people every single day through the businesses that we run. And this comment that your behavior is your language. And so what they were going at is, how you show up, your behavior. So what is your behavior to the level of commitment that you have to your business? And if let's just say you set a plan that says, okay, I want to show up, and in all of our other videos, you guys have seen this, where we talk about staying committed, being determined, being true to your word. This is in that same line, but we're really talking about your attitude, your process of showing up in an area that says, hey, I actually see that they're not that committed. And these are the things that I see all the time. So for example, if you have, an opportunity where you're like, okay, I'm writing this plan and I'm going to show up at 8 o'clock in the morning, right? Or I'm going to show up at 9 o'clock in the morning, or I'm going to make X amount of phone calls, or I'm going to talk to X amount of people. And then you go through this process. And what they're saying is that your behavior really tells us what you're not telling us. And so what this means is you might not be fully committed. Maybe you're not fully committed to your goal. And if you're not fully committed, it's tough. B, you're struggling through a breakdown. So you're getting to a point where it's a lot harder than you think. You're not getting the results fast enough in this process? I don't know. But it starts to show up based on how you show up. So you don't have to actually verbally say, hey, I'm feeling down, I'm feeling defeated, I'm feeling beat up, I'm feeling overwhelmed, I'm feeling a lack of commitment because of all of those things. We see that based on how you act, not on what you say. And so what I love most about this particular topic, in that your behavior is your language, it's fun to watch those that succeed at a high level. And I'm blessed to have all of those kinds of people in my company also, both groups, right? One group, which is fully committed, their behavior actions show their intention. So if you're going to write something down, what is your behavior in your day-to-day, and does that reflect your intention? Because you could say, hey, I want to do this, but your behavior doesn't really tell us that that's what you're doing. We'll go even deeper, and we'll talk about all sorts of different things, right? If you are, let's just say somebody that says, I want to get up every day to go to the gym, and you show up, you get up at whatever time. Let's say you want to be there at 5 a.m., 6 a.m. It doesn't really matter. Whenever you choose to get there is great. But are you fully committed to that process? And if you show up some days and some days you don't show up, then what you're doing is you're really telling yourself, and you're telling anybody who's around you, that you're not fully committed. Because if you're fully committed, you would completely show up every single time. If you're wanting to lose 10 pounds, 20 pounds, 30 pounds, 50 pounds, 100 pounds, it doesn't really matter. Are you fully committed to that process? It doesn't really matter what you tell anybody being fully committed, because it doesn't really matter. The only thing that really matters is how you show up. What is your behavior? How does your behavior reflect really what's going on in your head? And what I'm going at with this is your behavior reflects what's going on in your head. So if you question yourself a little bit here and say, why don't I stay fully committed to a weight loss program? Why don't I stay fully committed to being somewhere on time? Why don't I stay fully committed to showing up at work? Why don't I make all the calls that I should be making as a business owner to improve my business? Why don't I do that? Why do I cheat myself? Why do I go home early? Why am I constantly late? Why am I not committed to the program, weight loss program, gym program, whatever it is? Why am I not fully committed to my relationships with friends and my family and my spouse? It's because your actions, your behavioral process, shows us what you're feeling in your heart and in your brain. So how do we get these two things right? It's how do we get our heart right? Because our behavior, what's as a coach, and again, I don't coach anybody outside of my companies, so don't call me for that. But if you're inside of my group, I'm a coach here. And so if you are a person who says, hey, I really want to better my life, we have to get the mind connected to the heart, connected to the intention, connected to the determination. And so how does all of that happen? It's hard as a coach. We look at all these people and try to connect all sorts of different things to plug in to people to try to allow them to see something they don't see. And my mentor has always said to me this, Bernie, changing somebody's behavior takes a lot longer than almost everybody would expect. There's no better truth than that for me. Same with my entrepreneurship goal and the things that I've really tried to accomplish over time. Everything has taken 3-4 times longer than I expected them to be. I had a really high level of expectations in the goals that I set, but yet at the same time, I couldn't get myself there quick enough to even meet it taking twice as long. It all took 3 and 4 times as long. I've said some of these videos before. I set plans 15, 17 years ago to be at X amount of transactional numbers within my company. I'm still not there. Now, it's all worked out for me, but I had really big, lofty goals. And so I just didn't realize how long it would take. I had a 5-year plan that now we're 15, 16, 17 years in. I'm about 2/3 there. 2/3. 5 years now is now 15 or 16, 17 years, and I'm only 2/3 there. So what you have to write down here for yourself is you're changing your behavioral process takes a lot of time. It's only going to happen if you stay fully committed to the process and then continually ask yourself, what is it that holds me back from being more committed each and every day? Because when you set out a goal to be committed, it's going to fall short on day 1, day 2, week 2, month 2, year 2, because you're always working hard towards improving yourself. But what I want to do in this video today is have us connect to why we're doing this. And I love what Tony Robbins says. And he says, the reason you don't do anything is because it's just not that important to you. So how do we create an importance? I love that. I think about some of the things that I get asked to do and within my management group and within the meetings that we have every week. And there are tasks and things that I have to get done. And so I've recently, over the last, let's just call it 6 months to a year, have questioned my level of commitment to the tasks that I've been asked to do. And even in the years past, said I would do them, had a best intention of doing them, and then realized that I just didn't get it done. And the only reason why that didn't happen is because it's just not that important to me. So what I've done over the last 6 months is just make a commitment to say, when I tell somebody I'm going to do something, you do it right now. Do it right now. Don't procrastinate it. So that might be something you want to write down for yourself is what holds you back from doing it right now? What holds you back from tomorrow showing up on time? What is it in your thought process that says, I'm not going to make all my calls or talk to all the people that I'm supposed to talk to as a salesperson. I'm not going to allow one more day to go by. Tomorrow I'm stopping this, and tomorrow I'm going to make a difference in the business that I'm building for my family, for my children, for my livelihood, for my future, for my retirement. When does that decision stop? Look at yourself if you can and just say, what is my behavior telling other people? How am I showing up to something that shows the behavior that I'm presenting and other people are looking at me? What is that telling somebody who can read through you? It's fun as a coach. I've tried this several times with my mentor and my coach to try to say something or do something that I felt was a good answer. My coach and my mentor reads through it every single time. And for the 20 years that I've worked with him, he catches me on everything all the time. Because what happens is I'm telling a story in my head that I don't even realize I'm telling a story. Like I've so made up the story of what I think is true. Oh, no, you don't understand. I can't do it because of this. Or you don't understand. I'm late because of this. Or you don't understand is I have an intention to do that, but this is why I'm holding back. Great. As long as that works for you. So are your stories that you tell yourself valid? Are the stories you tell yourself making you feel better? Are the stories you're telling yourself satisfying to others? Are the stories you're telling yourself preventing you from going through discomfort? Is the story you're telling yourself justifying your lack of success? Is the stories you're telling yourself working with your spouse, your children, your retirement, your life, your goals? Let's check on that story because your body language is showing up potentially putting yourself in a position where everybody else can see it, but you're too busy trying to fool everybody based on what you think you're projecting off to other people. And I can tell you, I see it all the time where people will say, well, you don't understand. I got this going on or I got that going on. It's like, yeah, but that's irrelevant to the story. To the goal in which you set for us to work together. So none of that lines up to the story you told me, the goals in which you set for yourself. None of that works. The plan of action, the thing that got you most excited, what happened with that? Because that is what carries you. And as Tony Robbins says, the only reason you're not doing it is because the goal that you set for yourself wasn't strong enough to overpower the conditional behavior patterns that you have. It's crazy, right? It's crazy to think that we live our life in a manner that we continue to convince ourselves and we continue to keep telling people stories. And the coaches that you work with and the mentors that you work with can see right through it because we're coaches and mentors. And we see people do this more often than not. This is a fun kind of statistic in my world of real estate. 8% of all realtors, about 1,500,000 licensed agents in the U.S., 8% of them sell 4 or more homes a year. So if we take, let's just call that 120,000 realtors out of 1.5 million sell 4 or more homes per year. God, it's crazy if you think about the stories that all those 1.5 million people had a vision of having this really great real estate successful life. And yet, in the end, most of them, 92% of them, are living at the poverty level. Think about how staggering that is. They all had these goals and dreams, and yet they're performing at such a low level because the stories they're telling themselves are not matching with the behavior of how they're showing up. It's an interesting thing. Is that you? Is that anything you can I can relate to it because I tell stories too that I think are genuine and true. And when I find out they're not, I feel pretty bad about it. Like, wow, I mean, I just got basically called out and kicked down on the carpet, and the reality to it is it's all true. I'm a believer about a person who makes a decision, who works really hard to continue to look themselves in the mirror and say, you know what, I'm not perfect yet. I'm never going to be perfect, but gosh darn it, I'm trying my hardest to improve from who I used to be to where I would like to go and who I'd like to be and who I'd like to show everybody who I am. I'd like to be a better person for my spouse. I'd like to be a better father for my children. I'd like to be a better sibling to my siblings, right? I'd like to be a better, more physical person. I'd like to lose 5, 10, 15, 20 pounds. The only difference in any of that is that it works for everybody. Write that down. It works for everybody. It works for every single person. Every single person can have a change in their life if they understand this concept that the lack of our commitment ends up with the result that we have in the end. So what we're talking about here then, Bernie, is this. You're telling me that if I change the way I look at the situation, I stay fully committed to whatever it is I'm trying to accomplish, what you're saying is you'll completely 100% accomplish it. Yes. Yes, that's exactly right. That's what we're talking about today. And so if you're sitting at home and you're looking at this video and watching this video, by the way, hit like and smash the little subscribe button. We'd love to continue to keep bringing all this stuff to you. So if you can, do that for us, and we'll continue to keep bringing all this great material to you. But if you are wondering if the difference between your level of success today and what you truly want is truly in your doing, and everything you don't have is truly in your doing, and everything you do have is truly in your doing, right? I love that. I love talking to people all the time. They're like, well, you know what, Bernie, I don't think that's really me. Okay. Bernie, I just really like security in my life. Please describe to me what security is, because it really doesn't exist. Think it does. It's false in your head that you believe security is real. But there is no such thing as security. You want to know what security is? Bet on yourself and you'll win every time. You bet on somebody else and you never know what you're going to get, because the only thing you can control is what you're doing. You can never control how somebody else is behaving and how somebody else is acting. And so I go back to the behavioral pattern and the language pattern of your body and what you're pushing off by how you show up, or maybe you don't show up. And if you don't show up like you should consistently to make an improvement in your life, it's showing those around you, the people like us who look at and coach people and are mentors for other people. It shows us who you can't fool us. I could never fool my mentor. I tried to tell the greatest stories ever. He just laugh and go, I don't understand. I'm not buying into that. You know, I was sharing a story with one of my sales managers a few years back. Let's just call it 4 or 5 years ago. And I said, there's a great thing called the cover-up. And the cover-up is where we live most of our life, in that we have an intention, but we also have an excuse of why we don't have it. And it's our massive cover-up. And we can go back into our life many different ways. We could go back into covering up relationships that aren't going well and blaming other people. We can cover up our financial situation and masquerade our real situation, our real financial situation. We can believe that we have good relationships with our spouses, and the reality is, what are you covering up? Because it may not be all that great that you actually can make improvements on. Do we not have a great relationship with our kids that you're saying, hey, it's really great, or maybe it's not great, but you're telling everybody it's great? You know that's not great. You know the relationships aren't that great. I love the people who are like overweight, right? And they're like, they cover up themselves because they don't want people to see maybe they're overweight. We have cover-ups in our life all the time. Our work, what are we doing at work? Covering up. I see it all the time within the world I live in, and the employees that I work with, and the agents that I get a chance to coach. And I'm seeing all these cover-ups, all these things. And what we have to do is break all of that down and find out why they're doing it and create a really good action plan and letting them see it. They got to see it. They have to actually look in the mirror and go, yeah, I actually feel like I am not in the right frame of mind right now, and I need to work on my integrity. I need to work on my commitment. I need to work on how I show up, because when you show up inconsistently, it's showing us what's going on in your head. You don't have to verbalize it. Your mentors, your coaches, and the people around you, if they are really watching and paying attention, you're really probably not fooling many people except for yourself. And so I'm going to ask you guys to just let's be better. Let's stay committed. Let's write it down and stay committed. No matter how difficult it is, let's stay committed. No matter how challenging it is, let's stay committed. No matter how much discomfort it is, let's stay committed. And what happens is in time, it becomes your new behavioral pattern, and then you grow off of that. You cannot continually be dishonest with yourself and grow from that. You will just continue to keep being dishonest with yourself and then justifying that. So let's stop doing that. Let's be honest with each other. Let's be committed to the task and the goal at hand. I know this probably was a tough one for some people to hear. I had to face it myself. I hope everybody has a great day.